In the IELTS speaking test, how would you answer the question, what's your job? It's a simple question, but many people quickly run out of things to say. This can stop you achieving the band score that you need. So in this episode, I'm going to give you 6 suggestions for ways that you can expand your answer and achieve a higher score. Hi, my name's Vic, and this is the first episode of the IELTS with Vic podcast. If you're already following my YouTube channel, then thanks for sticking around. And if you're new, then a big welcome to you. You'll find the links to my YouTube channel and blogs in the show notes, so make sure to check those out later. And if you want a free copy of the podcast transcript, then head over to my IELTS blog to request it, and I'll send it across to you by email. Right, this is a podcast about the IELTS speaking test, so let's get stuck straight in. In part 1, it's quite possible that the examiner will ask about your job. Now, this might seem like an obvious question to answer, as it's the kind of sentence we learn really early during our studies of a new language. However, if you want to optimise your exam score, this question definitely deserves some thought, and that's what we're going to do today. To start with, it's worth reviewing some of the alternative ways that you can be asked about your job. Some of the main ways that we can ask about someone's job are: what is your job? What do you do? What do you do for a living? How do you make a living? What's your profession? What's your occupation? And do you work or study? All of these questions are basically different ways to say the same thing, and in each case, the appropriate way to respond is to give some information about your job, if you have one. In future episodes, we'll cover how to answer this question if you are a student, job hunting, or doing various types of unpaid work, so make sure you subscribe to catch those upcoming episodes. For now, let's focus on effectively answering questions about your job and explore how you can optimise your score if you're asked one of the previously mentioned questions in your IELTS test. So the straightforward answer would be I'm a, followed by the noun relating to your job. For example, I'm a doctor, I'm an accountant, I'm a receptionist. Remember that in English, we need to use an article before a job title. Use a before a consonant sound, so a teacher, a pilot, a customer service assistant, for example, but use an before a vowel sound, so an engineer, an IT specialist, and an administrative assistant, for example. A classic mistake is to forget the article, which might happen if you don't need one in your own native language. However, this tiny a or an is really important in English, so if you want to impress your examiner, remember that article. An alternative way to answer if your job title is complicated is to say something about the area or industry that you work in, such as, I work in finance, I work in logistics, or I work in IT. To be honest though, I hear less people answering the question this way. If someone asks my job, I'll say, I'm a teacher, rather than I work in education. I think the I work in option collocates more strongly with certain professions. So if you haven't heard anyone use this phrase for your industry, it might be better to stick with the I'm a plus job title option. Like I'm a teacher. However, in the test, you're going to want to expand your answer further to optimise your marks. So I strongly suggest developing your answer by saying something extra about the company you work for. The extra detail could relate to the size of the company, the location, or the specific client focus. For example, I'm an accountant could be expanded by saying, I'm a junior accountant in a small accounting firm based in London. We deal mainly with clients involved in the property development sector. For myself, my short answer would be, I'm a teacher, but this isn't very exciting. So I could expand it by saying, I'm an English teacher, specialising in teaching English as a second language. I'm self-employed, working online, and I deal exclusively with adult students. Another aspect you might choose to mention is the type of contract you have. You can talk about whether you're full-time or part-time, whether you're a permanent member of staff, freelance or self-employed, doing short-term contract work, fixed-term work, or on a 0-hour contract. To clarify, this is how we can build these vocabulary items into a sentence. I'm a full-time employee, I'm a part-time employee, I'm self-employed, on a permanent contract, on a short-term contract, on a 0-hour contract. So, including these details into an expanded answer, my fictional friend Bob could say, I'm an IT professional working for a large bank in my country. I'm a full-time member of staff on a 1-year fixed-term contract. To clarify, in the British context, if someone says they work full-time, I would imagine that they work somewhere in the region of 37.5 hours per week, and part-time could be anything between 2 hours and 30 hours. It really depends. A 0-hour contract is basically a contract which does not guarantee you a specific amount of work per week or month. And it has been quite a controversial topic in the UK and many other countries in recent years. Another option you have for expanding your answer is to give some small nugget of information that shows your feelings or opinion about your job, such as whether you like it. For example, earlier I said that I teach adult students, and I could choose to expand this with my opinion by saying, I deal exclusively with adult students, which I really enjoy. The way you choose to expand your answer really depends on your own situation. The best answer, in my opinion, is the honest answer, as this will feel most natural to say. Now let's consider the alternative way of asking the question by saying, what do you do? It's important to notice that this question is asked in present simple. A mistake I've heard numerous times is that when I ask, what do you do? People sometimes give an answer about what they are doing right now, which is a mistake in this context. Let's compare. What do you do? I'm a student. What are you doing? I'm listening to a podcast. What do you do? Present simple, is a question about your job, whereas what are you doing, present continuous, is a question asking about your current activity, or possibly the future if we combine it with a future time reference, such as what are you doing on Saturday? So make sure you listen to the question carefully so that you pick up on the grammar being used by the examiner, and can therefore understand what question you're being asked, and then respond appropriately. It's also worth mentioning the two questions which refer to a living. They are, what do you do for a living? How do you make a living? This idea of making a living refers to earning money to pay for life's expenses. So, if you're ever asked about making a living, you know that it refers to earning money. In addition to being used to ask about the job someone does, you might also encounter this phrase in sentences such as, she makes a really good living from her current job. He'll never make a living doing that. The questions, what's your occupation and what's your profession, both basically mean the same thing as what's your job. You'll probably encounter them in more formal situations though. Personally, I associate the words occupation and profession with official documentation rather than conversation. But it's useful to know these question forms so that you don't get caught out. To summarise then, to expand your answer beyond just saying what your job is, you could mention the industry you work in, the type of company, location, type of client, contract type, and whether you like your job. Don't feel that you have to force all of these aspects into your answer though. Choose the ones which feel most suited to describing your personal situation. As I mentioned earlier, if you want the free transcript, which includes all of the key phrases from this episode, check out the link in the show notes. Now that we're coming to the end of this episode, I highly recommend taking a few minutes to create your own expanded answer to the question, what's your job? And make sure you remember to include an article before the noun for the job title. If you like, you can post your answer in the comments, and then I can give you some feedback on it. So go ahead, tell us about your job in the comments section. Thanks for joining me today, and see you next episode for more phrases and tips to level up your IELTS speaking test score and achieve your English learning goals. Thanks for listening and have a great day.